everyone, it's Reagan and welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be chatting through my 2021 reading goals, resolutions, guidelines, if you will. I did not make one of these videos last year, which to be honest, I'm a little grateful for, but this year I definitely want to go into 2021 some mindful hopes and dreams as it relates to my reading. And in general, I think it'll be fun to reflect back to see if I failed or succeeded or how it kind of went for me at the end of this upcoming year. But before we dive into the resolutions themselves, first I want to chat through this video's sponsor, which is Cereal Box. So I have been using Cereal Box since last fall, and it's honestly been so much fun and has actually helped me achieve one of my few reading goals of 2020 and a goal I continue to hope to accomplish in 2021, which is listen to more audio-based content. Cereal Box essentially produces immersive fiction in both audiobook and ebook format. The great thing about their stories is you can actually easily toggle back and forth between them, and also great depending on what you're actually doing. It's very convenient. Not to mention the story structures themselves are kind of created to be chapters, which are very consumable and short and easy to fit into like a lunch break throughout your work day, which I also love so much as well. Their stories also run the gamut across so many different genres: sci-fi, fantasy, historical fiction, thrillers, and there's really just a story out there for everyone. Not to mention the audio quality itself is so high quality. Most stories tend to have a full cast. There's also sound effects, so the actual experience of listening to these is so much fun. I'm particularly going to be highlighting in this video two upcoming releases that I'm personally super excited about. First is Marvel's Black Panther: Sins of the King, which launches January 28th with its first 3 episodes, and the other story is Memory Lane, which has episodes out January 13th. A bit more about Memory Lane, as it's one I'm personally really excited about. It's a contemporary sci-fi story written by Sarah Shepard, who of course wrote Pretty Little Liars, as well as Ellen Goodlett, who wrote the Rule Duology. It is said to be perfect for fans of Recursion, which is one of my favorite books by Blake Crouch, as well as Black Mirror, so definitely like a twisty, turvy sci-fi thriller. It essentially follows our main character Alex, who has her mother Cassie's memories of her past like put in her brain as part of like this scientific trial experiment. But as Alex begins to experience memories that her mother doesn't even remember happening, including witnessing a drowning from her past, Alex then has to begin to rely on her unreliable mind to essentially escape danger that now her mother and herself finds herself in, to evade the killer from her mother's past that is now seeking to keep the truth buried. This just sounds like it's full of twists and turns, lots of fun. Love that it has an unreliable narrator component to it as well. It just sounds like it's going to be twisty-turvy and something really fun to listen to during my workday. Of course, I have an offer code for you guys. If you want to get 50% off your first Cereal Box story, you can use the code Reagan Cereal Box. I'll have that down below, as well as a link to the site to learn more. Again, big shout out to Cereal Box for sponsoring this video and working with me. I've really been enjoying their service these past 5 months. But now let's dive into the rest of my resolutions and goals for 2021. So as I said, I didn't really set any reading goals in 2020 outside of a literal like book number I hope to hit for the year. In 2020, I wanted to read a total of 75 books, and I was actually able to read 86, which was above my goal and really exciting. I actually hadn't been able to complete my Goodreads reading challenge for the past 2 years. I was kind of sticking around 56 books, but this year, for a lot of obvious reasons, I was actually able to read more, which was one positive for sure of 2020. Thinking about 2021 and how many books I hope to read, I've decided to actually stick with the same reading goal of 75. I hope to read more than that for a variety of reasons, but in full vague transparency, there's a lot of stuff happening next year, a lot of really big changes, I hope anyway, that will either maybe allow me to read more, but maybe make me read less. I really don't know the outcome of what's going to happen, as well as there's just in general a lot of question marks for a lot of us on how 2021 is going to go. Like maybe I'll be in Paris in November. You never know. I mean, that would be great. I doubt it, but you know, I'm gonna manifest it. So with that in mind, I've decided to keep my actual like reading target the same, with the hopes of reading more like I did this past year. But if I hit 75 books or 60 books, I'll still be really pleased with that as well, as long as I like the books I read. I find the quality of books is always more important to me than the quantity of books. So that is my reading number goal for 2021. Reflecting back on my genres of 2020, I read pretty much like 92% fantasy with a little bit of nonfiction and a little bit of contemporary / historical fiction sprinkled in. It was pretty much like fantasy, nonfiction being my second most popular genre, and then everything else. This is something I do kind of want to change a bit going into 2021, which brings me to my second reading goal for this year, which is to read a larger variety of genres. I'll be honest, I'm still going to be primarily a fantasy channel. That is kind of the meat and potatoes of my content. It's also my favorite thing to read. It's the thing I'm most excited to read at any point in time in my life. So the percentage of fantasy is going to go down, but it's not going to go down drastically. If I'm being honest, there are a few genres I personally want to prioritize going into this new year that I just haven't read a lot of that I also really, really enjoy. The first one is sci-fi. I just in general do not read a lot of sci-fi, which I think is kind of funny given how much fantasy I read. I feel like there are fantasy sci-fi readers that are, 50-50. There's sometimes more sci-fi heavy readers. I am so far on the other side. There are so many famous sci-fi books I have not read. I read like 2 sci-fi books last year, and this is something I just want to change because I love sci-fi. It obviously has a lot of narrative trappings that I love and find in fantasy, and there's just so many excellent books out there that I want to check out that I'm trying to prioritize this genre in general more for 2021. I don't think I'll be reading like 20% sci-fi, but if I can get like a few really good sci-fi books in this year, I would be thrilled with that, like 4, 5, 6 or something. I would be really excited about. The next genre I definitely want to read more is historical fiction. I love historical fiction. One of my majors in college was literally history. Watching historical documentaries, reading historical nonfiction is something I really enjoy, but I also just enjoy fictional based historical stories as well, and I just did not read any of those last year. I'll say there's like a subgenre of historical fiction that I love the most, which is like historical fiction with a dash of fantasy. I just find that to be some of the most captivating, mesmerizing tales out there, and that is something I want to read more in 2021. Like straight up historical fiction, but some ones with some magic in there as well. And the last genre I'm going to highlight is going to be nonfiction and memoirs. So this goal is actually one I feel like I did succeed at in 2020. I think I read on average about 1 a month throughout last year, which is definitely more, if I'm being honest, than I even anticipated going into the year. And this sort of trend is one that I want to continue into 2021, reading a mixture of educational based nonfiction, which is something I just want to continue to do throughout my life, but also mixing in more memoirs, which is something I found out that I really enjoyed reading last year. I never really had read one previously. And also getting back into and finding more like stranger than fiction, real history, nonfiction books that are kind of like deep dives on like specific topics or interests, in the vein of like Devil in the White City, which I read last year and really, really liked. There's just so many historical topics I would love to learn more about, and also just read like some fun, fast-paced nonfiction thriller novels, which I read a few last year and really liked. I want to continue to do that in 2021 as well. As I'm trying to be realistic with these guidelines, like obviously there are a million genres that I want to read. I love books, so everything in general interests me, but if I'm being realistic with myself, I'm probably going to read still primarily fantasy, but I do want to make sure I prioritize those 3 genres as well throughout 2021, and just making sure I am reading at least a couple or a few books within those throughout the year, as I literally failed outside of nonfiction to do that for 2 of those 3 genres. And on the topic of diversifying my genres throughout the year, another priority, which I think is obvious and something every reader should strive to be, is just ensuring not only my genres are diverse, but the actual voices in which I'm reading from are also diverse. Just continuing to be mindful about my TBRs, my selections, my recommendations, to ensure that I am including a vast array of points of view within the bookish world, because there are so many incredible bookish tales out there, and I just want to continue to be diligent and mindful to include as many of them as possible on my channel. My next goal is to continue to read audiobooks. So audiobooks is definitely something that was very new to me in 2020. I never really previously listened to them. It just wasn't something that was part of my routine. But at the beginning of the year, I started listening to them when I commuted. It was so much more relaxing than trying to read an ebook on the train, I discovered, and I was able to just zone out in the most peaceful way on the train. Obviously, I stopped commuting in March and have been working from home ever since, but my audiobook consumption actually didn't change. I loved listening to them while I was working. I loved listening to them when I was cleaning. And I feel like there are some books that are honestly better suited to the audio experience, depending on the narrator or the structure of the tale, that I just loved listening to it via audiobook. I'll say there's probably some genres that I'll never listen to via audiobook, like fantasy, but memoirs, nonfiction, even some fiction, depending on how it's structured, like the audio experience is just something I really love. It's kind of like listening to a podcast, which I never really listened to previously, and now audiobooks kind of fill that void for me. It's honestly just been a really nice discovery, and one that I want to continue into the new year. And obviously I feel like as hopefully the world gets back to normal, I can listen to audiobooks when I'm traveling or driving or maybe commuting again. Like, I don't know what the world's gonna look like, but I just want to make sure I'm still listening to audiobooks because they're so much fun and I really, really like them. Next is a bit of a behavioral goal. I want to be on my phone less and read more, especially at night. Recently, I have found myself in the past few months just constantly scrolling on my phone. And while I definitely don't think I'm never not gonna be on my phone, that's unrealistic. I love social media. That's a thing that I know about myself. But particularly, I want to start cutting down my phone time in the evenings and begin to prioritize reading in the evenings, kind of having more of an unwind routine, kind of moving away from the digital rectangle and try to read and just decompress. And in general, just create a more healthy, consistent routine for the evenings that can be more relaxing. I'm hoping, in full transparency, this will help me more a bit with my like insomnia or difficulties falling asleep, and just kind of creating a more peaceful, structured routine for myself in the evenings. And in the same vein of that, I want to work to accomplish doing that in the morning, and I want reading to be a part of both of these routines. Like, I want to read at least a little bit every night before bed, and I also want to work to wake up even earlier before work to do a variety of things, but also include possibly reading with like a cup of coffee before I start my day. The goal is essentially to create a more peaceful beginning and end to my day and just create a more consistent routine. The hopes of this is honestly that I'll be able to read more. If I have like a designated reading time in the evenings and in the mornings, I feel like I'll be able to, in theory, get a lot more pages in. I feel like I did this before in the past and it worked really well for me. And I feel like I just kind of fell a little bit out of rhythm, and I'm sure a lot of you guys can relate to this. I'm kind of just like sliding into one day into another and just not really having much of a routine, even while just always being at home. So I want to embrace the fact that I'm still going to be at home all of the time, but try to create even more structured pockets for myself, and to include reading within that, to again read more, but also just kind of have a more relaxing mindset and what I feel like are two important times of the day, the evening and the morning. So that's a goal for myself that kind of includes reading, but is also just kind of like a larger old behavioral thing I want to work on in the new year as well. The fourth goal of mine is I want to continue to post bookish content on Instagram. Obviously I'm a YouTuber, but I also really love Instagram, and I would say in the latter half of last year, I've begun to post like short form book recommendations and bookish content over there that's very different than a YouTube content. Like, this is much more long form, but I found a lot of like creative fun and freedom just creating really short and digestible bookish content amongst some of my more fashion and lifestyle content over on Instagram. If you don't follow me over there, I guess here's a plug. But that's just something I want to continue to do and even get better at, and just kind of, I want to push myself to create, I guess, different and more types of content that just appeals to me and it might be fun and just be a little more adventurous. I don't know, you know, get with it with the kids, TikToks, the reels. I'm not sure yet, but I will say I've been really liking making bookish content over on Instagram, and that's something I hope to continue to do into 2021, maybe make some IGTVs. I'm not sure, but more content is what I'm trying to say. So yeah, it won't change anything on here, but I don't know. I like talking about books, so that's the point of that. And then my last goal, which is a goal I have honestly every year, I'm just not sure if I've ever verbalized it in a video and to you guys, it's just my goal is to be consistent. I just really love having a consistent upload schedule and having a certain number of videos a week or a month, and in general I feel like this is something I've always really strived to do throughout the years on my channel, and it's just something I hope to continue to do throughout 2021. Just want to make sure I'm putting consistent and hopefully enjoyable content out for you guys. That's always a goal I have. So I guess on that vein, if there's any particular videos you would be interested to see, let me know down below. I'm always planning out my videos in advance to make sure I have something up for you guys. But that I would say is kind of a goal I literally always have. I've just never mentioned it. But yeah, be consistent and produce consistent YouTube videos on my channel. Alrighty guys, those are my goals and guidelines for my reading plans and adventures for 2021. Please let me know down below some goals that you have for the new year, as I would love to know. And again, big shout out to Cereal Box for sponsoring this video. I'll have a link to their site as well as my coupon code down below. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you soon with another video soon. Goodbye.